Each year in the United States, the number of people reported missing is staggering. According to national statistics, around 600,000 individuals are declared missing annually. This figure encompasses both adults and children, and while it may suggest a crisis on an unimaginable scale, the reality is more nuanced. The overwhelming majority of these cases resolve quickly. More than 80% of missing adults and close to 90% of missing children are located within the first 48 hours. In most situations, the disappearance is temporary, linked to miscommunication, voluntary absence, or short-term circumstances that are clarified once authorities intervene. Yet behind the reassuring numbers lies a darker truth. A small percentage of missing persons do not return within hours or even days. For these individuals, absence stretches into weeks, months, and in some cases, decades. Families left behind live with constant uncertainty, never knowing if their loved one is safe, alive, or will ever come home. For law enforcement, these long-term disappearances present unique challenges. Evidence grows cold, memories fade, and potential witnesses move on. The initial urgency of a fresh investigation gives way to silence, leaving unresolved mysteries that linger for years. These are the cases that capture public imagination and haunt communities. They are the rare but powerful reminders of how fragile security can be. A child, a teenager, or an adult can vanish without warning, and when they are not quickly found, questions multiply. Where did they go? Why did they disappear? And will the truth ever be known? This documentary focuses on 3 such stories. Each case represents a different path of disappearance: voluntary departure, forced captivity, and abduction, leading to questions of identity. Together, they illustrate how absence shapes lives and why the re-emergence of the missing years later demands attention and understanding.
Every case holds secrets. Some are solved, but many remain lost in time. When the evidence fades, we open the true cold files.
First, we look at the disappearance of Jacquelyn Rains-Kracman and Melvin Uphoff, 2 individuals whose sudden absence in 1965 baffled their families and communities. On September 24, 1965, 18-year-old Jacquelyn Rains-Kracman was last seen at her parents' home in Columbus, Ohio. That day, she left her 2 young children in their care, explaining that she would be attending a wedding in Glenwood, Iowa, with her roommate. It was meant to be a short trip, lasting only a weekend, but Jackie never came home. She never returned to collect her children, and from that moment forward, she seemed to vanish completely. Her parents, alarmed by her absence, soon discovered that her roommate had returned. When questioned, the roommate admitted to dropping Jackie off somewhere, but refused to reveal the location. The vagueness of her response left the family with more questions than answers. Years later, investigators would learn that the couple married in Glenwood that weekend had no knowledge of Jackie or her companion, raising suspicion that the story of the wedding may have been a cover for something else. At the time, Jackie's life was already in turmoil. She had married, young at just 16, and given birth shortly after. By 1965, the marriage had collapsed. Her estranged husband filed for divorce in September, leaving her navigating the emotional strain of separation. According to her sister, Jackie had packed 2 full suitcases for what was supposed to be a brief wedding trip. The detail was striking. Why would she take so much with her if she truly intended to be away for only a few days? When her car was later located parked outside her home, the suitcases were missing. Jackie, and everything connected to her departure, had disappeared. Exactly 1 month later, on October 24, 1965, another disappearance occurred. This time, it was 31-year-old Melvin Uphoff of Rising City, Nebraska. That day, Melvin spent time with his wife and 4 children, then joined his parents for dinner. Everything seemed ordinary, routine. But that night, as his wife prepared the children for bed, Melvin told her he was stepping out to buy beer. He never came back. Melvin left behind more than just uncertainty. He vanished with his coin collection and his car, a 1954 Oldsmobile. Neither the vehicle nor its owner were ever found. His sudden disappearance paralleled Jackie's in both timing and mystery. Within local communities, rumors began to circulate. Whispers suggested that Jackie and Melvin had been involved in an affair and that the 2 had fled together to start new lives. The speculation grew in the absence of evidence. No confirmed sightings, no recovered belongings, and no confessions surfaced. For both families, silence became the defining reality. 6 children, collectively left behind, grew up without answers. Jackie's sister later revealed that authorities in 1965 showed little interest in investigating. "I really don't think there was an investigation," she explained. "If there was, it didn't amount to much." A documentary released in 2008 confirmed this absence of follow-up. Key figures, including Jackie's roommate and her estranged husband, had never been interviewed at the time of her disappearance. Over the years, faint glimmers of hope emerged but never solidified. Jackie's sister recalled once seeing a woman resembling Jackie at their mother's funeral. The same woman appeared again at her workplace, but left quickly before she could be approached. These moments lingered as haunting possibilities. Had Jackie returned briefly, watching from a distance but unwilling to reveal herself? Decades stretched on without answers. Melvin was declared legally dead in the 1970s, though no body or trace of him was ever recovered. For the families, time did not dull the loss. Each passing year only deepened the mystery, solidifying the sense that both Jackie and Melvin had disappeared into a void. Then, in May of 2009, after 44 years of silence, the truth was finally uncovered. Authorities successfully tracked down both Jackie and Melvin. Speaking with them by phone, investigators learned that the pair had indeed left their families behind to start a new life together. They had not been kidnapped, murdered, or lost in an accident. Instead, they had made a choice, one that changed the trajectory of multiple families forever. Nebraska State Patrol spokeswoman Deb Collins confirmed the outcome. The couple had committed no crimes. They left of their own free will, seeking a future that did not include the lives they had once lived. Out of respect for their privacy, officials did not disclose where they were living. Whether they attempted to reconnect with the children they abandoned remains unclear. The revelation was both an answer and another wound. On one hand, the mystery was solved. Jackie and Melvin had not been victims of foul play. On the other, the confirmation brought a painful reality. For over 4 decades, their families had suffered, uncertain and grieving, only to learn that the loss had been intentional. 6 children had grown up without parents, not because of tragedy beyond anyone's control, but because of a deliberate decision. This case highlights not only the silence of law enforcement during the 1960s, but also the lasting consequences of unanswered disappearances. For years, loved ones endured anguish, while rumors took the place of truth. When clarity finally came, it was not through a dramatic discovery of evidence or witness testimony, but through the simple act of tracking down 2 people who had chosen to walk away. The story of Jackie and Melvin is striking because it embodies the complexity of disappearance. It was not the result of crime, but its impact was no less devastating. Their families were left with scars of abandonment, while the couple themselves managed to carve out private lives beyond the reach of those they had left behind. Next, we turn to the haunting story of Tanya Kach, a 14-year-old girl whose disappearance in 1996 revealed a decade of captivity and manipulation. In February of 1996, 14-year-old Tanya Kach vanished from McKeesport, Pennsylvania. A middle school student, she had been navigating the turbulence of adolescence in an environment already weighed down by family conflict and bullying at school. But what no one could have foreseen was that her disappearance would not be the result of a stranger's abduction, but the culmination of months of manipulation by a man who should have been entrusted with student safety. Thomas Hose, a security guard at Tanya's middle school, was 24 years her senior. Their relationship began when he caught her skipping class. Rather than disciplining her, he promised not to report the incident. That seemingly small gesture created an opening. Jose positioned himself as someone who understood her struggles, gradually gaining her trust. Over time, he began drawing her out of class, talking with her privately, and presenting himself as a sympathetic listener. He also started offering gifts, candy, flowers, even money for cigarettes. These tokens, though modest, created a bond. To Tanya, they seemed like evidence of care. At home, Tanya's parents were going through a bitter divorce. At school, she faced unrelenting bullying. She was vulnerable, and Jose exploited this vulnerability. Slowly, he convinced her that she would be better off with him, away from her fractured family and the classmates who tormented her. When he kissed her in a stairwell, Tanya believed she was experiencing love. By February 10th, 1996, she had resolved to leave her old life behind. She arrived at Jose's house, expecting refuge. Instead, she stepped into a nightmare that would last a decade. Jose lived with his parents and adult son. To conceal Tanya, he confined her to his bedroom. She was not allowed to attend school, see her friends, or leave the room. He enforced complete control, forcing her to use a bucket as a toilet, feeding her with leftover scraps, and subjecting her to repeated sexual abuse. Jose demanded that she document these acts in journals, not as a way of confessing, but as trophies he could later brag about to friends and co-workers. The abuse was sustained through fear. Jose threatened her with death if she disobeyed. He told her he could kill her in her sleep, place her in a garbage bag, and throw her in the river. Fear immobilized Tanya. She remained silent and compliant, her adolescence consumed by captivity. Years slipped away in isolation. When Tanya turned 18, the circumstances shifted. Jose introduced her to his family under a false identity, Nikki Allen. To them, she was not a kidnapped teenager, but his girlfriend who would be moving in permanently. By giving her a new name, Jose created a layer of deception that concealed her true story. He began allowing her outside the house, though under strict conditions. Tanya later explained that he trusted her to return because he knew she was brainwashed. These initial outings were disorienting. She was free to walk the streets or attend church, but she did so under his instructions, hyper-aware of time and curfews. She felt like a deer caught in headlights, physically outside the prison of his room, but mentally still trapped by his control. One of her new destinations was JJ's Deli Mart, a local store owned by Joe Sparrow. There, Tanya began working part-time. For the first time in years, she experienced a glimpse of normal human connection. She built friendships with Joe and her co-workers, observing the ordinary warmth of family interactions. This contrast revealed to her how distorted her own situation had become. "I saw how a family should be," Tanya later reflected, "and I said, that's what I want." Gradually, trust developed between Tanya and Joe. After 10 years of silence, she finally confided in him. She told him to search a missing children's website and promised he would find her picture there. Joe, stunned, contacted his son, a retired police officer familiar with her case. The chain of disclosure moved quickly. Authorities were notified, and investigators soon descended on Jose's residence. In 2006, after a decade of Tanya's captivity, Thomas Hose was arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. In 2007, he pled guilty to multiple charges: statutory sexual assault, corruption of a minor, and aggravated indecent assault, among others. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. For Tanya, the courtroom became a stage for reclaiming her voice. In her victim impact statement, she declared to Jose that she was no longer his puppet. With strength, she told him, "You took away my innocence, my childhood. You made me think my family didn't want me or love me, that no one cared or loved me but you. For 10 years, you controlled me." Her words transformed years of silence into defiance. Life after her release was not without complexity, but Tanya emerged determined to rebuild. In 2017, she co-authored a memoir of a milk carton kid, the Tanya Kach story, recounting her ordeal in her own words. In 2018, she married and became a stepmother, finding stability in the kind of family life she had long yearned for. Her relationship with her father initially seemed supportive, but eventually fractured when he suggested she bore some responsibility for what happened. That rift caused estrangement. With her mother, however, Tanya found closeness and support. Her mother helped her heal, offering the consistent care that had been absent during Tanya's formative years. In later years, Tanya encountered Joe again, the man who had played a pivotal role in her escape. They reconnected, reflecting on how his willingness to listen and act had saved her from another lost decade. Today, Tanya dedicates her life to speaking openly about grooming and exploitation. She emphasizes that while technology and culture may change, the strategies predators use remain consistent. "We're in a different era," she explained, "but that stuff hasn't changed. How they groom you, how they lure you in, and how they mentally hold power over you." Her survival and recovery underscore the importance of awareness, community, and intervention. Her story illustrates the devastating effects of manipulation and abuse, but also the possibility of resilience and renewal. The case of Tanya Kach stands as a reminder of how a trusted figure can exploit vulnerabilities, how captivity can extend beyond physical walls into psychological control, and how one act of courage, confiding in another person, can unravel years of secrecy. Her ordeal demonstrates the enduring dangers of grooming, the long-lasting scars of exploitation, and the essential role of supportive individuals in breaking cycles of abuse. Finally, we examine the extraordinary case of Paul Joseph Fronczak, a newborn stolen from a hospital in 1964, whose identity would unravel decades later. On April 26, 1964, Paul Joseph Fronczak was born at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. His parents, Chester and Dora Fronczak, were overjoyed by the arrival of their newborn son. But only one day later, that joy turned into devastation. A woman, dressed as a nurse, entered Dora's hospital room and told her that the doctor wanted to examine the baby. Trusting the apparent nurse, Dora handed over her infant. The woman never returned. Paul had been kidnapped. The abduction triggered one of the largest manhunts in Chicago's history. More than 200 police officers, 175,000 postal workers, and the FBI joined the search. 600 homes were canvassed within the first 24 hours. Yet despite the scale of the investigation, no trace of the missing baby emerged. Newspaper headlines spread the story across the country. Dora and Chester pleaded for their child's return, but their pleas went unanswered. For 2 years, the Fronczaks grieved the loss of their son. Then, in 1966, the FBI contacted them with news of a potential lead. A toddler, abandoned the year before in a Newark, New Jersey shopping center, had been placed into foster care. Authorities named him Scott McKinley. The child had been found in a stroller with a black eye, and despite widespread publicity, no one came forward to claim him. Out of thousands of infants reviewed during the investigation, this boy was the only one authorities could not rule out as Paul. Chester and Dora traveled to New Jersey and met the toddler. They chose to believe he was their missing son. Dora later explained that she faced an impossible choice: to declare uncertainty and return him to the system, or to claim him as her own and raise him. She chose the latter, and from then on, Scott McKinley was known as Paul Fronczak. For many years, life continued quietly. Paul grew up in the Fronczak household, loved as a son. Yet questions began to stir when he was 10 years old. Searching for Christmas presents in the crawl space of his family's home, he discovered newspaper clippings about the kidnapping. Confronting his parents, he was told that, yes, he had been kidnapped as a baby, but that the authorities had found him and brought him home. "We found you, we love you, and that's all you need to know," they told him. But for Paul, that reassurance did not erase the doubt. He began to wonder about his true origins. As he grew older, the questions deepened. Who was he really? Where had he come from? In 2012, Paul decided to seek definitive answers. He convinced his parents to take DNA tests alongside him. Although they initially agreed, they later asked him not to submit the results. He did so anyway. The outcome was life-shattering. There was no biological connection between Paul and the Fronczaks. The child they had raised for decades was not their son. Paul described the moment as the collapse of his identity. Everything he thought he knew, his birthday, his medical history, even his heritage, was suddenly false. He was not Polish, not Catholic, not even a Taurus as he had always believed. He was, in essence, a stranger to himself. The revelation launched a new search, this time not for a missing baby, but for Paul's own identity. In 2013, a group of volunteer genealogists known as the DNA Detectives took up the case. Using genetic testing and family tree analysis, they traced Paul's origins. In 2015, they uncovered the truth. His real name was Jack Rosenthal, born in 1963 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He had a twin sister, Jill. Both children had vanished from public view in 1965. The Rosenthal family's history was troubled. Relatives recalled that Jack and Jill were severely neglected. Their father struggled with PTSD and anger issues, while their mother battled alcoholism. Witnesses described the twins being confined, even kept in a cage. A babysitter once discovered them in a filthy room, sitting in cribs with unchanged sheets, both children dirty and uncared for. Jack was seen with a black eye. Eventually, the twins disappeared, Family members noticed their absence, but the parents, Gilbert and Marie Rosenthal, always offered excuses. No clear explanation was ever given. When Paul learned of this, he reflected that his biological parents had been cruel and neglectful. He expressed gratitude that he had been abandoned because it gave him a chance at a better life with the Fronczaks. Still, one question haunted him. What happened to his twin, Jill? Paul initially believed that Jill had died and that he was abandoned because the parents could not explain having only one surviving twin. Later, he came to suspect that Jill might still be alive. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children even created an age-progressed image of what she might look like as an adult, though no photographs of Jill as an infant existed. Despite efforts, she has never been located. Meanwhile, the mystery of the original kidnapping remained unresolved. If Paul was not the Fronczak son, then where was the real baby? The answer came decades later. In 2019, investigators identified him as Kevin Ray Batty, living under a different name. Kevin had been raised by a woman named Lorraine Fountain, who returned from Arkansas in the 1960s, suddenly caring for a baby. How she obtained him remains unknown. Many questions still remain in this case. It is not clear who kidnapped Paul from the hospital, or what became of his twin sister, Jill. Some mysteries may never be fully solved, and there you have the facts. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stay alert, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.